Hi, Brian here. Welcome to the Angel Share, and what you're looking at is a Baldwin locomotive running around a 74cm by 68cm board, and this is not a World War I layout. Indeed it isn't. And while I was surfing on eBay, I saw this for sale, the armoured car for 009 narrow gauge. These were based in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, so another war layout, but this one is based in Vietnam. And we see that I have set up a board with ideas drawn out on it, the rough ideas, the rough shapes of where I want to put things and how this little narrow gauge layout is going to pan out. Now, I'm fully aware that there aren't any prototypes of this, but I had an idea of what if the French took World War I locomotives to Vietnam in the 30s to do a narrow gauge line to help the tobacco and rice farmers move their products using a gauge that, should any natural or other causes damage the track, it's easily fixed and easily repaired, the way they proved during World War I. So I set about coming up with a track plan for this very small footprint. Wanted a roundy, be my first roundy layout that I've ever made, and also my first narrow gauge layout too. And this is the first track plan idea. I bought some cheap polystyrene insulating boards and used that for the surface. By using these boards, it meant that I could cut into the polystyrene, creating little ditches, streams and any undulations in the land. Here you can see different areas that I've drawn out as far as the position of buildings, the position of the camp, and where the jungle's going to be, and roughly getting an idea of the size of area I have to work with to create scenics and room to actually put the buildings in. Here we can see some card mock-up buildings that I made for the area. This side is going to be Nha Trang, 30th of January 1968, the day before the Tet Offensive, where life would be normal, people would be going about their daily business in this busy town. Here we have the War World Scenics Jungle Diorama kit. A great kit, but it's for 28mm wargaming. I decided to use it for obviously the 00 gauge, which I believe is 20mm. Not too sure on the wargaming side of things, but here we see Nha Trang cardboard village built up, mocked on the side, well, town actually, and I've got a little Honda dealer that I've made from an MDF kit, kit bashed it basically to kind of give some colour and detail. And here is the very culprit that started all this, the armoured car. A great kit, the details on it are superb, fits ideally over the Peco 11109 chassis, which is quite popular in the narrow gauge world. It's an N gauge chassis, but all the 00 gaugers use it for their kit bashing. And I have a rail car as well, and that's on the 11105 kind of Bobo double bogie axle as well. You can see that there. I've got ammo muds, I have ammo acrylic water to be putting in where the stream's going to be as well. The jungle kit has lots of great little details in it. It has 5 palm trees, I believe. What I've actually done is cut the palm trees, made them a little bit smaller because I felt they were standing too high above my diorama back scene, which is going to basically be an action diorama layout, one half a jungle, the other half the town of Nha Trang. As I said, there is no prototype for this model. This is basically the first of its kind, a narrow gauge based in Vietnam. It certainly could have been a what if the French had taken over narrow gauge locomotives in the 1930s when they ruled and were the kind of colonial power in Vietnam. And then once the war broke out and the North Vietnamese started making a push with communism and the American forces getting involved, my idea is that once the American troops moved in, they've taken over the narrow gauge railway, discovered a couple of Baldwin locomotives and reutilised it, not only to help out the local populace where it's hearts and minds, trying to help them by supplying a narrow gauge railway. And you can see some model scene jungle foliage that I'll be using, which is 1:72 00 gauge. So yeah, that's the jungle side of it, the palm trees, etc. I'll be using a different back scene for that, not the polystyrene obviously. So yeah, US troops using the narrow gauge railway that the French left behind. It could have happened, it should have happened, but I'm making it happen. Here we see the different foliage that you get. There's a various grasses, no stickers on them to let you know what size is what, but you can guess by just basically holding them up and rubbing it in your fingers. Some little patches of grass and strips of grass, all related to the jungle foliage scenery. Different tones of grass there as well. Here we have the Baldwin doing a circuit of the layout. The left hand side in the triangle we have a siding, a passing loop which will be done with flexi-track, a rail car station, an engine shed where the locomotives get refuelled and repaired, a little team track for the goods being dropped off, whether it's tobacco or rice. And then on the jungle side we have one siding going into the American base. Here we see a stream I've started to create using cellular clay, which is basically like sculptor mould. I've raised the area on the right hand side for where the jungle is going to be to make it all undulating, and the stream narrows off in towards the back scene, giving a kind of false perspective. Here we can see the placement of the palm trees. What I'm doing is putting in little pegs to mark out where the palm trees will be. As I said, they were too high. I did cut them down and use the little stumps to show how the jungle has been carved into for the narrow gauge railway to pass through. So there will be little stumps on either side of the track, and the cellular clay has gone quite hard and it's a great surface to paint. Here we have an Mdf Jungle Village. This came with an Atilera kit. We have two buildings, so we have a small building and a larger L-shaped building. These will be used by the US troops at the camp, and I will modify these structures. And to help with the scenic areas where ditches and raised parts, I use Das Clay, and I basically put PVA on it. It's a technique I've seen someone do on YouTube, and it helps seal the PVA into the Das Clay and this polystyrene surrounding it as well, especially if you're using muds and lots of heavy acrylic paints. Here we have Operation Silver Bayonet. The Atilera model company have supplied a full diorama setup. You get a tank, an M113 APC carrier, Huey helicopter, VC troops, US Marines. You get two large MDF buildings, you get a watchtower, and you get a small kind of first aid station and a road barrier set up where I've kit bashed some of that. Here we see the US troops starting to paint them up. All the paints out there, from LifeColor to Tamiya to ammo. Whatever paint you've got in the pot gets used, so paint the little troops up. He's on the radio, going inside the watchtower. This is the first man that sees the VC approaching the camp. From his vantage point there, looking down towards the stream behind the main building. Here you can see the stream going behind the large building, and the VC will be inside that stream, creeping up to attack the base as they come out of the jungle. In that space will be an M113 APC carrier, which is part of the kit. I started making that up used olive green to paint it up, then had some stowage equipment. I've painted that up to attach to the MP3, the M113 should I say, which means that this vehicle will be stationed just at the large building. Troops will be basically relaxing. There's cans of coke, there's cigarette packets and all that there. So here we see the VC troops roughly where they would be, going into the stream and creeping up round behind the main building as the 31st of January 1968 and the Tet Offensive. For the thatched roof I used Das Clay, put it on quite thick and then used the edge of a knife to form the reeds. Made up two halves on either side of the roof. Obviously with the terracotta red it stands out a mile. Here we can see the Das Clay on the edge of the panelling that I've done to basically seal in all four sides of the diorama. I've done it a little bit higher to stop any probing fingers at exhibitions wandering onto it, to offer a little lip. Painting the thatched roof, mostly done in deep browns and light creams with a black wash. For the second structure I had thicker card paper painted in various tones of black and grey, cut into squares and then placed on randomly. I think you'll agree the structures look quite good in that position. Still to do more weathering to them and add some more details like sandbags and troops etc, and obviously the foliage and scenery that surrounds these areas. But it's certainly coming together and it's something I'm quite excited about doing. I cut into the polystyrene and created a fire defensive position, then cut out some cards and placed it in the bottom of that position so the soldiers were just peeking over some sandbags as they look out from that area. One lonely troop, he'll be joined by others, using dowels and some of the kit bashed pieces from the actual Atilera kit have helped make up this fire position, including the sandbags, which I've put on the base to put on top of the roof, so there is a double defensive position there. The model scene foliage is excellent. The little jungle pieces, cut them out with a scalpel, bend them and just glue them in position using PVA. For the Wickham Armoured Car, I had to give it a little spray paint before I could do any weathering to it, so I used Halford's car spray, grey spray paint, and it comes with a tiny metal machine gun barrel that gets attached to it as well. These are excellent 3D printed kits. The rail car and the Wickham Armoured Car both come from an eBay seller called Tin Web. I would check them out. The livery is a paint scheme I saw in some pictures surrounding coaching stock in Vietnam. The armoured car out on reconnaissance. These used to run along the tracks in front of passenger and freight trains to offer some form of fire support, or even just to draw out the NVA or the VC that were in the area, who grew to dislike these little beasties, but they certainly had an impact and they helped out the American troops secure their base on the edge of the jungle. The little rail car runs really sweet as well. I added glazing and a driver to the interior of it, and it certainly helps add some character to it. And the Trang side is still going to be scratch built. All the buildings will be made by me, either kit bashed or made completely from scratch. VC troops advancing through the jungle. 31st of January 1968 was the Tet Offensive, where all VC NVA troops attacked American bases, camps and installations throughout Vietnam on what was their national holiday. Came as a great surprise to the Americans. but they have their defensive position set up, some barbed wire added there as well. Thanks very much for watching and tuning into this update on NAM 68, my what could have been Vietnam narrow gauge layout, based in 1968, just prior to the Tet Offensive, near a place called Nha Trang in the southern area of Vietnam. Please leave a like or a comment and subscribe. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye bye.